Hi, so this is a bit different from the kinds of videos I'd normally do. I normally like to write out everything I'm about to say and then read off the script, but this one's going to be a lot more just off the cuff. Recently I did a video ranking all the tracks in Mario Kart 8, and this is going to be kind of a companion piece to that, because I saw videos from Sir Musti and Odyssey Central ranking all the cups, and I thought, oh, that sounds like a fun idea, but I don't know if it would be redundant given that I've already talked about all the tracks. But then I thought this could maybe be a fun way to test the water for this kind of format. Not that I plan to do this kind of format a lot, but once I've released every video I plan to release this year, I want to do a kind of year in a review where I go through each video individually and say if I'm still happy with them or not. And I want to do that in this looser style, so consider this the test run to see if I can make the format entertaining. Now, it would be easy to just average out all of my placements for the tracks and then order based on that. In fact, I quite literally have done that in my notes document in front of me. Not only do I have a list of what's in each cup, but I've also put down where I placed them, what tier I had them in, which 90% I was able to write down from memory, which make of that what you will. But then I wanted to see if my ordering for how I like the cups differed from just the sum of their parts, because I think there's a bit more to consider than just how good the tracks are on average. That'll play a big part in it, but there's also its placement in the roster. Like, I'm not going to be too hung up on something like the Mushroom Cup not being as compelling as future cups. And then like DLC picks being a lot more basic is probably gonna harm their overall cups. And there's also the matter of ordering. Is each track better than the last, or at the very least more difficult than the last? So I haven't written down where I'm gonna place these on the tier list. In fact, I'm not gonna be taking notes while I do this, so there's every chance that I'm gonna forget how I'd order them as we go along, so I'm not going to be placing too much emphasis on where they rank in comparison to other tracks. It'll more just be the general tier placements, and then I'll probably like screen record putting them all in the tier list to match up with how I feel, so that can be used to get a more specific idea of the ordering. I don't know, we'll figure it out as we go along. I'm also not going to go too in depth on any individual track because I've got the 85-minute video for that. This is more sort of how they function as a cup. So let's just see where this goes. Alright, Mushroom Cup, we got Mario Kart Stadium, Water Park, Sweet Sweet Canyon, and Thwomp Ruins. Aside from Water Park just being kind of okay, I think this is a solid selection. Not a single one of them cracked the top half, but that's fine. Though at the same time, I think this is the first Mushroom Cup where I notice really potentially cool themes actively being held back. Like, Mario Kart Stadium's the first track and whatever. Sweet Sweet Canyon, I didn't really expect much more out of it, but I feel like Water Park and Thwomp Ruins could have maybe lended themselves to being a bit more ambitious, and I think that they're held back by being placed so early in the track selection. But even then, I don't think that fully lets them off the hook because, I mean, Mario Kart Wii had Mushroom Gorge and Toad's Factory, and those are fantastic despite being Mushroom Cup tracks. And then like Luigi's Mansion and Shy Guy Bazaar, they don't feel like they're held back by their early placement. I don't know, it's a consistently good but unexceptional cup. I think B tier is fair. It serves the role a Mushroom Cup needs to. The Flower Cup, we got Mario Circuit, Toad Harbor, Twisted Mansion, and Shy Guy Falls. Okay, I think I'm also gonna put this one in B tier, but it's like a big difference from the Mushroom Cup. I feel like a lot of these are gonna go in B tier because for me at least, I feel like B tier can have the widest range in quality. It's difficult to explain, but I think this is a really great selection of courses that doesn't quite form an amazing cup. Mario Circuit's good, and I don't really think there are many other ways to make the Mobius strip idea that much more interesting. Toad Harbor and Shy Guy Falls are both fantastic, but as far as A-tier tracks go, they were both on the lower end for me. And I like Twisted Mansion, but it is pretty easily the weakest of the four. The ordering for this one's also kind of all over the place because you start good, then jump up to amazing, and then you drop back down to just good, and then you end with another amazing track, but I think Toad Harbor is a bit better than Shy Guy Falls. I think if Twisted Mansion did more of its fair share, or if either Toad Harbor or Shy Guy Falls were good enough to get higher into A or even into S, or even if the ordering was a bit better, then maybe I would say this is good enough to get into A, but I think really high B is as high as I'm gonna go and is probably a lot more generous than most would be. Oh my god, the Star Cup. So starting off with Sunshine Airport, one of the coolest themes in the game to me, followed on from with Dolphin Shoals, which is one of the better uses of underwater driving, then Electrodrome, which is one of the more standout tracks visually, and then ending with Mount Wario, which is probably the best track ever put in a Mario Kart game. I like every single track better than the last, and even the weakest of them still ranked at 32nd place and made it into A tier. Do I need to say anything else? This one's going into S tier, and if you're going to object to that, then I'm sorry, but you're just trying to be different. And then the Special Cup is probably the one I'm the most conflicted on. It starts off amazingly, I love Cloud Top Cruise. And then fucking Bone Dry Dunes, really? For such a strong track selection, the desert level is the one that deserved the Special Cup treatment. And then the final two tracks, look, I love Bowser's Castle and I really like Rainbow Road, but I don't think they're all that exceptional. They're both victims of comparison in my eyes, because even though they are both really, really good, they both feel like they're actively doing less than previous incarnations of these tracks. That might not be an entirely fair way of looking at it, but I don't know, I think Rainbow Road doesn't quite capture the same majesty as a lot of the others. And Bowser's Castle's so great, but when previous Bowser's Castles also do the Giant Stone Bowser thing plus other little gimmicks, just doing the Giant Stone Bowser without those other extra little gimmicks doesn't feel like it's trying quite as hard. I definitely see the vision with people who think it's one of the best tracks in the game. I just don't quite feel the same way myself, and I think it'd be easier for me to come to that conclusion if I wasn't so fond of like the Wii Bowser's Castle. I don't know. Either way, both of them are really good, and I think Cloud Top Cruise cancels out how boring I find Bone Dry Dunes. They probably average out to B tier again, which 3 B tier cups out of the Nitro selection. You know, they're good, but they're nothing crazy. And then the Star Cup is just the best cup in all of Mario Kart out of nowhere. Like, how the hell did that happen? But yeah, B tier for the Special Cup. It could have been A if Bone Dry Dunes was replaced with literally anything else. I'm not going to hold the ordering against this one too much because, yeah, you do have to end with Bowser's Castle and Rainbow Road, so that's fair. Shell Cup starts really great with Wii Moo Moo Meadows. I really like the upgrades to this one. GB Mario Circuit's a bit of a downgrade. It's a decent track, it's got good music, but it's not all that interesting beyond showing off the anti-gravity with the Ultra Hand segment. And then I do really like DS Cheap Cheap Beach, but then you end off with the boring remake of Toad's Turnpike. How delightful. So this is a cup that peaks at the very beginning, and then you have a bit of a back and forth in quality from decent to pretty good, and then just ending flat out bad. I do like all of the tracks that aren't Toad's Turnpike in this one, but I think C tier is fair for this. I don't think they're quite hitting the heights I would want to rank them any higher. Banana Cup's off to a great start with outright my least favourite track in the game, and then Donut Plains 3, while I like it enough, isn't really carrying it much higher. I do like Royal Raceway and DK Jungle quite a bit, but they should be strong supporting players and not the main draws of the cup. Even though I think it's got 2 really good tracks, I think I might have to put this one in C tier as well. Like, do I prefer this over the Shell Cup? I don't think I do, because the Shell Cup at least has the excuse of being the first one, so I think Banana Cup's gonna have to go at the bottom for now. Alright, surprisingly, I think I might actually rank Leaf Cup in A tier, because I think Yoshi Valley is its only real drawback. I get a lot more out of Wario Stadium and Sherbetland than I imagine most would. One's just really fun with all its trick opportunities, and the other's really pretty. I love them both and I always have a good time on them. And then Melody Motorway is one of my favourite tracks in the game. I don't think I'm gonna get much pushback on that. If you're the kind of person who dislikes Melody Motorway, you probably also drink microwave tap water. It's unfortunate that it has to end with Yoshi Valley. Not only the weakest track in the cup, but the only one that I don't really like. But I think I love the other 3 enough to put this one in A tier anyway. Teetering on the edge of going back down into B tier, but the selection here is strong enough to where I don't really mind. It's not like I hate Yoshi Valley or anything, I just think it's kind of whatever. And then, oh my god, the Lightning Cup. The worst track in this cup is TikTok Clock, which still cracked the top 30 on my list. Then I like Piranha Plant Slide even more. Neither of them stick out to me as, oh yeah, this needs to be in the final Retro Cup, but they're both so good that I don't mind at all. Then Grumble Volcano perfectly fills the role of your final challenge. The theme is perfect for it, and I think it's got a good level of difficulty for that final challenge role. And then ending on N64 Rainbow Road is just the perfect capper to the base game. I've seen the sentiment of, oh, it's too short and easy, but I've also seen the sentiment that it serves as a really nice victory lap, and I think I definitely fall more in line with that opinion. So 4 fantastic tracks, each of them I like more than the last, and it ends off with both an intense gauntlet and just a really charming celebration. It's an easy choice for S tier. It's a tough call between this and the Star Cup because I think the first 3 tracks for both are pretty much on even footing, but I think the Star Cup still remains on top because as much as I love N64 Rainbow Road, like I put it in S tier, I put it in the top 10, Mount Wario is still by far the better ender, like it's not even close. close. Still, second place for now is far from a bad position to be in. Onto the Wii U DLC now, we have the Egg Cup. That's Yoshi Circuit, Excitebike Arena, Dragon Driftway, and Mute City. I think Mute City is an excellent closer, but I don't think it alone can bring the average up from just being consistently good, but nothing crazy. I know that Yoshi Circuit and Excitebike Arena are fan favourites for some, but I'm in the camp that just thinks, yeah, they're pretty good. Which is an opinion I think extends to the entire cup. I think it's a really good selection, but nothing crazy outside of the ending. Outside of that ending, I also think it lowers in quality with each passing track, so yeah, I don't think it's greater than the sum of its parts. B tier seems fair. The Triforce Cup is all over the place. We start off with a remake of Wario's Goldmine, which I think is fine, I kinda like it, but not nearly as much as its original version. Then SNES Rainbow Road in the middle of the cup is such a weird choice. I know that's because of how the ordering had to be with the retro tracks in the first 2 slots and then the new ones in the final 2, but putting Rainbow Road as track number 2 out of 4 in a cup just feels so wrong, especially since it's by far the best track in the cup. The others do not keep that momentum going. It's not because they're bad. I quite like Ice Ice Outpost and Hyrule Circuit, but yeah, you don't follow on a Rainbow Road with these two. It makes sense to end the cup with Hyrule Circuit because it's named after it, but yeah, I think this one's also gonna have to go in B. The Crossing Cup is gonna be a weird outlier because it's one of the few times where I am completely 100% on board with a cup starting with its best track. Baby Park is definitely my favourite of the 4 here, but it's so simple that I think it being what starts off is completely understandable. And the other 3 I think have a really good sense of escalation. I think Cheeseland's pretty decent, Wild Woods is great, and then of course you end off with Animal Crossing, which is good for me because it's my favourite of the 3, I really love it. I don't think Cheeseland is as much of a hindrance as I was initially expecting. I might have put Cheeseland in C, but that doesn't mean it's bad, I still like it. The selection here is strong enough and the escalation is well handled enough to where I think I'll put this in A tier. I think the Bell Cup might be the most slept on cup in the game. Like, because I didn't get the DLC when Mario Kart 8 was on the Wii U, I hadn't really committed to memory which of the DLC tracks were in which cup, but then when I was watching Musti's ranking, I realised Neo Bowser City, Ribbon Road, Super Bell Subway, and Big Blue all in the same cup. That's kind of a wildly perfect selection. I think Neo Bowser City is the weakest of the 4 by a fair margin, but I still love it and I could have put it in A tier if there were just a few more hazards in it. Ribbon Road's one of my favourite tracks in the game, and while I don't think Super Bell Subway is quite on that same level, I think I can get behind it coming after since it's more difficult and elaborate with its alternate paths. Plus, it's not like a nosedive in quality or anything, it's still fantastic. And then ending with Big Blue, holy shit. Even though I put it 4th in my ranking, I don't think my description of it did it nearly enough justice. Like, it has all these speed increases and varied track design, and yet it's never mindless in that. You still have to maintain full control, you have to position yourself in the water streams, make sure you're going on the right conveyors, positioning yourself for the boost pads, picking which path you want to take. It's a masterclass in track design, easily one of the best in the game, and the perfect note to end the Wii U DLC on. I think Neo Bowser City not being quite up to the same level means I can't put it in number 1, but this is still an S tier cup and an easy 3rd place so far. In fact, the placement of the 4 tracks added together is the same as the Star Cup. It's just that one was more consistent, and Mount Wario I think was still a stronger ending than Big Blue, even if only slightly. Onto the Booster Course Pass now, and the Golden Dash Cup is not one of the stronger cups in the game, but looking at the lineup, I think it's still pretty good. I think Paris still gets a pass as an introductory course, because even though everyone would know how to play Mario Kart by this point in the roster, so we don't really need a tutorial for basic mechanics, I think this one does a good job showing us what the alternate laps gimmick is gonna be like for the other tour cities. Then it kinda shits the bed a bit with Toad Circuit, which, no. But then Choco Mountain's good, and Coconut Mall, while not even close to its former glory, is still pretty amazing, so overall I think it averages out to be a solid cup. I'll say B tier, but lower than the Mushroom Cup. It hits higher highs, but also much lower lows. Lucky Cat Cup, I struggle to think whether I'll put this one in C or B. Either way, I think it's the 3rd worst in the game so far. I love Shroom Ridge and I love Ninja Hideaway, but Tokyo Blur is such a big misfire, and Sky Garden isn't exactly carrying the average much higher. I guess even though there is a bit of a zigzag in quality with the ordering, and even though Tokyo Blur is so fucking bad, I guess I'll barely let it creep into B tier, since I do like Ninja Hideaway that much and Shroom Ridge is also doing its fair share of the heavy lifting. If I end up changing my mind and pushing it down to C tier, well, you'll see that reflected on screen. Turnip Cup is, oh my god. New York Minute, SNES Mario Circuit 3, and Calamari Desert all in a row. Out of those three, I only really mildly enjoy 1.5 of them. And saying you're on the railway tracks for half of Calamari Desert is a bit of a generous estimate. I know people are ride or die for that one, but I just think it's kind of okay. Dodging the trains is really fun, but when they're not there, you're just kind of driving down one linear circular road. Compared to Super Bell Subway, it's night and day. And while I like New York enough, it's not that much. I think this is a case where a cup would be much less than the sum of its parts, and that all of them being C tier would lead to me putting the cup overall in D tier. But then we end with Waluigi Pinball, one of my top 10 favourite tracks in the game, so even though I don't think it carries it up to being something I'm dying to play under any circumstance, it's a strong enough ending to where I'll let Turnip Cup stay in C tier, but this is currently my least favourite cup in the game. For the Propeller Cup, we got Sydney Sprint, GBA Snowland, Wii Mushroom Gorge, and Sky High Sundae. Two tracks that I think are okay, one that I really like, and one that's among my favourites in the core selection. I want to say that Snowland and Mushroom Gorge are good enough to let this one slide into B tier, but I don't know, half of the cup being just decent, and then ending on one of those two decent tracks, this might go down into C. It's got a higher average than the Lucky Cat Cup, but so much of that is Mushroom Gorge doing the heavy lifting. I do like all four of these enough, but I might just put it in C. I don't think it's an especially strong showing. The Rock Cup, weirdly enough, had the exact same average with London Loop, GBA Boo Lake, 3DS Rock Mountain, and Wii Maple Treeway. And like, I guess Maple Treeway is better than Mushroom Gorge, and it does end off the cup like it rightfully should. Rock's a little better than Sky High Sundae, but I think London and Boo Lake are a little worse than Sydney and Snowland respectively. I want to say that if I was split on Propeller, then fixing the ordering a little would let Rock climb into B, but then Boo Lake is doing a bit less of its fair share than Snowland was, and then London's a bit worse than Sydney to the point where I no longer like it, so I think them getting the same average was pretty fitting actually. I feel about the same towards both of these. Whether I put it in C or B, I don't know, whatever I put on screen is probably how I feel, but could go either way between them. Moon Cup frustrates me because you could have so easily had one of the best cups in the game. You got Berlin Byways, DS Peach Gardens, Merry Mountain, and 3DS Rainbow Roads. Berlin's decent, Peach Gardens and Merry Mountain I really like, though they definitely have their problems, and Rainbow Road is my third favourite track in the game. I think if you fixed the nerfs with Peach Gardens, gave Merry Mountain a better ending, and then replaced Berlin with Singapore or any of the other higher ranked cities, this could have been an easy S tier cup rather than how it is right now where Rainbow Road is doing the lion's share. I think I'll put it alongside where I put Flower Cup, near the top of B tier, that seems fair. Hell, even just making Peach Gardens or Merry Mountain that little bit better could have given it the push into A tier, but I think a lot of the tracks individually are too weak or flawed for me to call this one of the best cups in the game. Speaking of one of the best cups in the game, I think Fruit Cup is pretty close to that. I love Amsterdam, I think Riverside is pretty good, and then the ending of Snowboard Cross and Yoshi's Island is phenomenal. I could nitpick and say, oh, Yoshi's Island is on the simpler and easier side, and me liking Snowboard Cross more means that I would have changed the ordering around, but I think ending on the big crossover track is fine. It's not like there's a world of difference between them anyway. I don't know if I'd quite put this in S though, because even though I like Amsterdam and Riverside, they aren't quite up to that same standards. Riverside in particular is pretty short and not all that memorable. I think this can sit at the top of A tier though. It's a phenomenal choice, no complaints from me if it gets picked. The Boomerang Cup is making me realise that Wave 4 had all of the pieces to make probably the best cup in the game if they just ordered them differently. Because here we've got Bangkok Rush, DS Mario Circuit, GameCube Waluigi Stadium, and Singapore Speedway. I think if you swapped Stadium and Singapore around with Amsterdam and Riverside in the previous cup, then Fruit Cup would be pretty untouchable. As Boomerang is here though, I think this is a really great selection. Bangkok's one of the better cities, Waluigi Stadium and Singapore are amazing tracks in their own right, but DS Mario Circuit, while I like it enough, I couldn't really get behind its inclusion as paid DLC, and I think it brings the average down quite a bit. It's a bit frustrating and brings it down, but I think the average here might be strong enough for me to let this stay in A tier anyway. I think because there aren't any S tiers in this, I might bring it down to B, but based on whatever the tier maker on screen has shown, that was my final decision. I'm split right now. Oh my god, Wave 5 was very much the we're so back, it's so over wave. These two cups could not be any more different in quality. Feather Cup I think is a good shout for top 5 in the game. I'm not crazy about Athens, which I have learned relative to the other tour cities is kind of a controversial take. So sorry to all the Athens fans, I think it's good, I like it, I just don't think it's amazing or anything. But then we have Daisy Cruiser, Moonview Highway, and Squeaky Clean Sprint. What a fucking lineup, dude. Daisy Cruiser is one of my favorites in the game. We take a bit of a dip back down to Moonview, but I still think it's fantastic. It is held back a bit because where are the cars? I mean, it's supposed to be a car themed track, but it's too easy. Where are the cars? I don't think it would have gotten into S tier regardless because of the more simple ending, but even with the nerfs, I still think this is an incredible track and more than worth following on Daisy Cruiser, even if it's not quite as good. And then you end with Squeaky Clean Sprint, one of my top 5 favorite tracks in the game. Like, this legitimately lives up to the original Coconut Mall in terms of creativity and quality. You know what, might be an unpopular opinion, I think Squeaky Clean Sprint's a little better. It's not as perfectly ordered in terms of increasing quality, and Athens isn't quite up to the same standard, but you know what, the quality on display here is so high that I still think this breaks into S tier. The lowest S tier, but still S tier. I'm picking this cup every day of the week. And then we follow on from that with the Cherry Cup, oh boy. Los Angeles Laps, GBA Sunset Wilds, Wii Koopa Cape, and Vancouver Velocity. This is the most obvious example I can think where a cup is less than the sum of its parts, because I like Koopa Cape and I love Vancouver, but to me this cup embodies all of the worst parts of the Booster Course Pass. An overabundance of tour cities, graphics that just aren't up to snuff, retro remakes that have had their entire appeal bastardized. I don't really care for Los Angeles Laps, and Sunset Wilds ranked as my 3rd least favourite track in the game. I enjoy Koopa Cape enough, but it annoys me so much that they stuck with the 7 versions nerfs and didn't put anything worthwhile in place of the electric hazards and water stream. And then I love Vancouver, but the rest of the cup is just not on the level of quality to where I want to play through the rest of it to get to it. And then in that same breath, as good as Vancouver is, it should not be the cup's shining star. Even though I think 2 of these tracks are really good, I think this is going to be the first and only D tier cup in the game for me. There's just no reason for me to want to go back to it. The next one should be pretty easy though. The Acorn Cup has Rome Avanti, GameCube DK Mountain, Wii Daisy Circuit, and Piranha Plant Cove. This is probably the most consistently just good cup in the game to me. As much as I think Daisy Circuit didn't justify its inclusion and DK Mountain's a lot worse off than it was before, all 4 of these are really fun. I could say it's on a downwards trend in quality with me liking each track less than the last, but it's not by such a significant degree to where I even notice. I have fun on all 4 of these, I'm not complaining if the cup gets picked, but there's no real shining star either. All 4 of these got into B tier in my ranking, so I'll put the cup itself in B tier as well. And then last but definitely not least, the Spiny Cup. We have Madrid Drive and Rosalina's Ice Worlds, which I love both of them, but they're not amazing. And then you end with a 1-2 punch of SNES Bowser's Castle 3 and Wii Rainbow Roads. 2 of my top 10 favourite tracks in the game. I think those 2 are able to carry this into S tier for me, because even though Madrid and Ice World aren't nearly up to that same standard, I still think they're both really fun. I am absolutely not part of the crowd that dismisses them for being a city or an ice track. If there was either of them that I didn't love, then yeah, I would probably bring the cup as a whole down into A tier, but I think these 2 act as very strong supporting players, even if they're not doing the bulk of the lifting themselves. And then everyone's praised BC3 and Wii Rainbow Road to the high heavens. How much more do I really need to add to that? I love each track, I like each one more than the last, and remastering a SNES track to become a true masterpiece, then closing out with Wii Rainbow Road was the best note they could have possibly ended the Booster Course Pass on. I don't think it quite makes top 3 because it is a little lopsided in quality, but even still, I don't think I could have asked for a better ending to the Booster Course Pass. I mean, yeah, there were plenty of better options to put in Ice World's place, but you know what, I'm gonna take it as Nintendo putting it in to make me specifically happy. I'm sure Shigeru Miyamoto himself looked at my Mario Kart 7 ranking and thought of the sickest prank to play on the Mario Kart community. And there's the final tier list. I'll also put one on screen ranking them by the average of where they placed on my track rankings, so we can see how the ordering differed there. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoy this more unscripted format. This is very much an experiment to see if this kind of thing works, so let me know in the comments if it did for you. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, and if it didn't, that's fine, that's the point of experimenting. Alright, I'm gonna take it a little easier for the next couple weeks because I have not really stopped for a while, so I'm gonna just chip away at larger projects in the background. See you in the next video, goodbye.